the small goals boy, Goal Caufield, Elock. You know him by many names, but today it is Cole Caufield's season review.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1315 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing everywhere you get your podcast. Doing that ensures you don't miss an episode, and it supports us here on the show by making sure that you get every episode 5 days a week. We are your team every day. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, the end of another week. When are the Canadiens going to do something? Like, what we need something, Kent. Give us something.
Yeah, I think they need to do a blockbuster trade, and then do some tampering.
For sure, tampering.
Yeah.
Go
I want
talk
some
to
tampering.
Sid. Yeah, 1,000%. Just start talking to other centers that we mention on this show, so that we can say that we talked about it first.
Yeah.
That's just part and parcel with the media in this town, right? We run everything, just like in Toronto, how the media is the reason why they lost.
No, it was the fans. It was the fans were the reason.
Oh yeah, so it's the fans. Sorry. Hey, we're both. Look at that. Today is our Cole Caufield season review. We get to talk about the high water mark for this young player. Very excited to talk about the numbers that popped out to me in Cole Caufield's season. And also we want to spend a little bit of time talking about next year. What does Cole Caufield look like one more year into his NHL career? And what is his role on this team? Does it shift at all? So we'll get into a little bit of that. And then we have the mailbag. We're going to talk about one Filip Mesar, who might be on the side of a milk carton right now, not really sure what's going on there. And we want to figure out what we can learn from some of the other losers, the other teams that, there's that post on the hockey subreddit of all the teams being accepted into heaven once they lose. Where all of the teams that are up there, what can we learn from those guys who were freshly eliminated? But let's start with our Cole Caufield review. I feel it's important to note, just because I think it gets lost a lot. Cole Caufield, this was his first season in the number 13. It seemed like he was born to wear that number. He had worn it previously, coming up in hockey. Obviously he wears it in honor of his friend and hero Johnny Gaudreau, and I thought this season was a fitting tribute to that player. Cole Caufield played an incredible role, and I just find it's important to remember that that's how Caufield's season started. Yeah.
I think we're going to do the word, obviously, in a second. I think one thing that kept going on through the theme of the season was, it wasn't just that, right? Like Meredith Gaudreau was on I believe it's That's Offside with Kat Toffoli and Julie Petrie, and was talking about how much Johnny Gaudreau loved Cole Caufield, right? Multiple times it came up about how inspired he was by him, how much he admired Johnny Gaudreau and all of that. And so I feel like something about the way he played this year was that he didn't care anymore. I think he got a lot of bogged down in trying to do too many things in the past. And I think a lot of working with Marty was simplifying his goals and his game. But in simplifying, they added elements and dimensions to his game that really he was able to bring out this year. And whether it is in tribute or whether it was just, him taking that next step, I think a lot of it had to do with it, right? Like if I'm Cole Caufield's friend, I'm proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I led the show with all of the nicknames. Elock was one that came from Johnny. It's Cole backwards. I've always kind of liked that one because a lot of hockey names are just name and we'll throw a Y at the end. Elock is nice. It rolls off the tongue.
Or you shorten it like Susie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Halsey, anything like that. Look, this is a career year for Cole Caufield. We hope it's not the career year when everything's all said and done, but so far it's his high water marks: 37 goals, 33 assists, 70 points. Tied for second in 5-on-5 goals, 26. He was tied with Kyle Connor, Morgan Geekie. Only Tage Thompson had more. There's only one player in the National Hockey League who scored more at 5-on-5 than Cole Caufield. Is that a surprising stat for you?
Yes, a little bit, because we're still not having we're still not including him in those conversations, right? Like when we talk about Cole Caufield, and I mean, when I say we, I mean as a society, we are not including Cole Caufield in those conversations. But I think it's incredible. And is it time to do our word?
Yeah, let's do the word. What do you have for Cole Caufield's season?
Vindication.
Vindication. That's a good one. Explain it.
I think there were, Cole Caufield has always had the potential to be a 40-goal scorer. I think a lot was made of that, and a lot was made of the fact that he hadn't even hit the 30-goal mark yet. I think people just forget how young he is and the very tumultuous nature of his start to the NHL, right? He started in a COVID year. He started, in a playoff run that was unlikely. He had ups and downs with the coaching. He was, he was artificially held back or artificially pushed too forward, depending on the situation and the scenario and the person. And so it took a while for him to settle. And the other thing too is that he's evolving still, right? Like there was a lot of development that he did, not just this past year that's a career year, but the year before, right? Where he quote unquote did not attain that mark, right? But who's to say that that was the goal? That was our goal for him. Everybody wanted us, like we wanted him to hit 30 or 40 or whatever, right? But what he was working on is defensive play, playmaking, creating space, trying to play bigger, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later. But this season was the season where the naysayers had to shut up finally, because he almost hit that 40-goal mark. And he cruised past 30. There was a slump after that, but he cruised past 30. It was just incredible. So for me, I feel a lot of vindication, and that's a word that I thought about saving for Nick Suzuki, but I thought Cole Caufield kind of it was more of a splash. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. I had a rival because Cole Caufield arrived this season. He had been here, he had his welcome to the NHL moment. He dealt with, some injury early on in his career. And this was the year he played all 82 games for the first time, and he arrived. This was his year. I think that, just watching him play, the work that Marty has been putting in, and all of them have been putting in to learn how to play the 200-foot game. I think Cole Caufield is a perfect example of that kind of player. I know he's not big. And there's 2 points I want to make to this. One, on the forecheck, Cole Caufield is very annoying. He loves to throw that shoulder. Most of the time, it's into the other guy's forearm or bicep, but he does throw that shoulder. He is great at taking the puck away from other players in those moments. But I want to point out a stat here. The number I have here is 66. That is the amount of times that Cole Caufield was hit this season. That ranks 218th among forwards. He is slippery. He does not get hit. So, we talk about small players not being able to make it in this game. It didn't look like Cole Caufield struggled in the playoffs to find space, right? I thought he was one of Montreal's most effective players. And in the regular season, you think of the grind of the regular season. Marty always says the league keeps going. The league doesn't care. Cole Caufield eludes hits. I go back to the hit that Ovechkin threw on Caufield in the playoffs. You know why we kept talking about that so much?
Because we don't see it often.
We don't see it. He doesn't get hit like that ever. Name another time you saw Cole Caufield get blown up like that. There was the one where I think he got hit in the Flames game that ended up hurting his shoulder. That's it. There's not a lot going on there. So I think, from a size perspective, it doesn't really seem to matter for this player.
Yeah. And I can attest to the fact that if you don't have size, being annoying can be very effective. I also think it's very safe for him to throw that shoulder because he can't hit anyone's head. So I think it's just
true.
It's a staple of his game.
It's not the Chara. Oh, he's just big. He can't control it. Yeah.
Well, I don't buy that.
No, nobody did.
But I also wouldn't buy it if Caufield said it, because there's something like impish and mischievous about him as well, which I really, really adore. I love Cole Caufield.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited to see him, his career progress, because I think he's just getting started. I think we're talking next year 40 goals, potentially touching 50, especially if he locks down that number one spot on the power play. And when we come back, we'll talk about his role on the power play moving forward and what we expect for Cole Caufield next season. And we'll do that in just a minute. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's really easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. I started using Monarch just to get a better grasp of my spending. And when I started, I recognized how much I was spending on food delivery. And shocker, it was a lot. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, from credit card apps to banking apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, we are back. And it's the first time we're doing a two-parter for our player season reviews because, let's be honest, a player like Cole Caufield is deserving of that. There's a lot to unpack with this player because he is a massive part of this team becoming anything worth talking about. So we'll stick with Cole Caufield. I want to talk about the power play. I want to talk about the power play because he had 10 5-on-4 goals this year, only behind Patrik Laine on the Montreal Canadiens. When Laine came back or made his appearance in Montreal, he took that spot on the power play, the spot that was usually Cole Caufield's. And when Laine could get that shot off, it was great. And then when he couldn't, it was not, because he was the only option on that power play. And then in the playoffs, we got a little glimpse of what a power play next season might look like without Patrik Laine because he was hurt, but with Ivan Demidov on the other side. And it just felt like the options were way more open on that power play. Laura, it is October 10th. We are playing the Toronto Maple Leafs as we always are on the opening night of the NHL season. Morgan Rielly takes a stupid penalty. Montreal is headed to the power play. Who is your first unit on the power play and where are they playing?
Oh, I'm definitely going off the playoffs, right? So you have to have Lane Hudson on the point.
That's you can 100%. Write that. You can chisel that in stone. He's not going anywhere.
You are putting Ivan Demidov and Cole Caufield on opposite sides.
Yeah.
And then who do you have driving the net? Is Juraj Slafkovsky?
Yeah, Slav was, towards the end of the playoff run. Mm-hmm. He was playing like side of the net. Yeah. And Nick Suzuki is in that bumper spot, the recipient of the bumper pass.
So now I'm putting Nick Suzuki back on the other point. So I'm having a one defenseman power play.
Yeah. I really like, and I think they're going to keep practicing this, and Suzuki's going to get better at it. Mm-hmm. Him being in that bumper spot and taking a shot. Because look, now with Caufield on there, there's just so many more options, right? On that, we saw Cole Caufield score a power play goal. We saw Juraj Slafkovsky score a power play goal. We saw Nick Suzuki get a lot of chances from that bumper spot. It is no longer one-dimensional. And look, I feel silly that I even have to explain this. I love Patrik Laine. That's my guy. It is a trademark, my dude. I love that.
Some new listeners didn't know that, right?
I will continue to say it. That's my guy. I don't know that a Montreal Canadiens power play is better with him there and Cole Caufield, because Caufield just kind of became like it was tough to find a place to put him. It reminded me of when he played in the World Juniors for Team USA. And on the power play, he was playing in the slot, like in the bumper spot, and they could never get the puck to him. And it's like, this is like the worst place you could play a player like that. I think if Caufield's on that power play, he has to have that spot. And it's a challenge because it means, like Patrik Laine, the one weapon that he has is that shot on the power play. And now you're putting that on the second unit, right? You have no choice but to do that.
There's nothing wrong with having two lethal units.
No, yeah, it's true, especially if they go out and they get a number 2 center,
Yeah.
play him there, or that could be Kirby Dach time.
Yes.
Kirby Dach can go out there and play the power play and play the net front, and they could more evenly split these power plays, when they can. Or you could just ride the hot hand. If one is super hot that night, just keep going with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
just think that Caufield has way more to give if he's in that spot that we have grown accustomed to him being in on the power play, right?
And I think that the problem with having Line there was that it's not just that Cole Caulfield was being defended against, it's that everyone else was defaulting to Line. And so at some point, the other teams figured it out, but those were the only two weapons.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could tell when the Canadiens played against a team who was good at penalty killing, they just glued a guy to line A, and they said, "We're going to give you that 4-on-3 on the other side of the ice. We do not care. You guys can have that all you want. We know you're not scoring because we took away line A." And it was true. That's the frustrating part. Now, I don't think teams are going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to take away just Cole Caufield on that wall, because now if they're setting up the bumper to Nick Suzuki, that's a playground for Ivan Demidov to go off, right? Like, that's just, he's going to dominate from that spot. Same with Slafkovsky, giving him the bumper off the goal line. So very excited to see that. Let's make some bold predictions about one Cole Caufield. What's his goal total next year? What is he hitting?
You're saying
Assuming health, assuming 82 games,
yeah.
What's he doing?
I'm saying 42.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he has more to give, especially because this was last year he didn't shoot a lot, right? It was very much like he just wasn't doing it as much, and I think a lot of that was his recovery from his shoulder thing. This year he was 10th among forwards in 5-on-5 shots. He was ripping it, and even with that, he had a 14.2% shooting percentage. That's not to say, like, for some players that's lucky, and which players they are. For Cole Caufield and a player with the kind of shot that he has, that's not luck. That's a guy just firing enough at volume to being able to score.
His baseline is 13 point something. I remember doing the math on that with Scott in the past.
You did a math, Laura.
I did a math.
Women in STEM, we did it.
Some people might not believe me, but I do it sometimes. But now I don't need to anymore because you're here and you're better at math than I am. So yeah.
Whatever the rectangle tells me to do, that's I'm able to punch numbers into a calculator. It's pretty effective stuff. Yeah, look, I think he hits 40 goals next year. I'm tempted to say that with his role on the power play potentially increasing, I'm tempted to say he's also a point per game player next year. 70 this year, and he did that mostly without any real, power play production once Line A came back. I'm tempted to say that he could hit that, because if let's say he's at 42, that means 40 assists. That's 7 more assists than he had this year. It's doable, right? Especially if he's making those steps. It is a lot, but you're hoping that the entire team takes that next step offensively and is starting to develop that part of their game. Montreal this year did not spend a lot of 5-on-5 time in the offensive zone. The defense was still a struggle, not to the way that we had seen it in the past, but just enough where it kept the offense from truly going on the attack most nights. I think as that improves, which it should, with all of these guys continuing to play and working together, I think that's going to end with the offense getting even better at 5-on-5.
I absolutely agree with you, and I think the biggest thing is that if this is supposed to be a contending team, by default, that top line or their top 6 has to be that good. Like, teams that contend to have guys like that up and down their lineup.
Yeah, and that line, the Boy Genius line, we talked about it a lot. One of, if not the best 5-on-5 lines in the NHL.
Yep, absolutely. And
they did that every night against the toughest competition in the league. Every team was sending out their best guys against that line, and it did not matter. Yeah. So if you put together another line that teams have to go, crap, we have to send out good guys against them too, it's going to be difficult for a lot of less deep teams to match. And, that comes with Ivan Demidov taking that step and becoming that offensive weapon, and whoever they have on the second line center.
Yeah.
That will improve the play of guys like Cole Caufield and Nick Suzuki. So it's everything.
And a full season Slav.
Yes, we need full season Slav. We need to give him a calendar in October that says February on it and say, go do it, man. Look, this is your time. And just don't, he just keeps turning it. And it just keeps saying February. Like, that's, I think, what we need to get for Slav. All right, we'll leave the Cole Caufield talk there. When we come back, we'll hit our mailbag. We have some questions. What about the AHL and where Filip Mesar might be? And an interesting conversation could come from that. And we have, we want to learn from the other losers, the other teams who fared the same as Montreal. What can we pick away from those teams? And we'll get into all that in just a minute. All right, we're back. Laura, before we get going, it's time to do our daily plug of our YouTube contest. So for those who might be unaware, we're running a contest on YouTube. We're trying to increase our number of subscribers. We want more of you guys to be subscribed. We are your Locked On Canadiens. We are your show every day. So we want to reward our subscribers by running a contest where once we hit 4,500 subscribers, we will do a giveaway for this Josh Anderson signed photo. And once we hit 5,000, we will do one for this Arbor Xhekaj signed photo. Ooh. All you need to do is put in the comments contest entry. One time we'll enter you for both of these. When we hit those numbers, we will do our drawing. Good luck, and thank you for subscribing. It means a lot to the both of us.
You're always giving your stuff away, honestly. Too generous.
Always.
Too generous.
Always. I did show Laura the other day a dumb toy that I have of that I'll never give away because it's dumb and I want to keep the dumb stuff. It's like one of those action figures of Maurice Richard, and it comes with a hockey card that says Maurice Richard, but the photo is of Henri Richard. And I look at it every day and I go, man, someone made a really big mistake and nobody cares.
And you can never part with that.
No, it's my favorite thing. Right next to my Kirby Doc baseball that was given to me by friend of the show, DF Pendries. All right, let's get into our mailbag. Let's start with a question on Phil Mesar, because I had to go to our main source. Of course, that being Scott Matla, our main source on the inside of the American
Our Laval Rocket correspondent.
That's our guy right there. And he's having a great time covering that team as he should. They're a lot of fun. Follow Scott if you don't already, but if you're on the show, you probably do.
Yeah.
This question comes to us from Tony. Tony says, "Hi, Laura and Ian. Just wanted to say first, I love the pod. Listen to you every morning when I walk my dog. Say hi to your dog for us." My question is about Filip Mesar. He got hurt towards the end of February, and the team said he'd be out for 6 weeks with an upper body injury. We're well over that 6 weeks, and I haven't been able to find any more information on his injury. Just wondering if you guys have heard anything. Well, I conferred with our buddy Scott. He said that he's just not in the lineup, that Phil Mesar is healthy, and he's just not part of the playoff lineup, which got me thinking, Laura, there's a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk about Phil Mesar being a bust.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to go that route. But knowing what we know about what the Canadiens are valuing in the players that they want to acquire between now and whenever they are, a contender, Phil Mesar doesn't really fit that vibe, does he?
No, it doesn't look like it. I think, again, he's not a bust. I don't believe that for a second,
It's
because
too early.
I don't think that his development has been linear or ideal in any way, right? Like, he was on some really crappy OHL teams, injury, bad luck, just things like that, where I feel like if he can put together a season, he can be an attractive target for a team. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that it's like, oh, they need a change of scenery and they'll do okay. Not amazing, but they'll do okay, right? Like they'll be able to find a home on an NHL lineup. But I just don't think that Montreal is that lineup. And I don't think that necessarily it's his fault. I feel like the way that Laval has been rolling, if you are Pascal Vincent, other than creating a goaltending controversy where none needed to exist, why would you put him in the lineup if everything that you're seeing is effective, right? And he's got a bunch of healthy scratches. Like if you look at the score sheet every night,
there's tons of them.
There's tons of them. So he's got many options. and he will have many, many tough decisions to make if there are any more injuries. So again, I don't think it's really a situation where Filip Mesar failed. I think he just got really bad luck with injury. The team kind of, didn't miss him when he was gone. Didn't need
Yeah,
to miss him when he was gone.
yeah, exactly. And look, I still think that he does not fit with the Canadians' sort of edict that they're going to get bigger, right? If you're, and I mean, like, there are guys who can play small. We just talked about Cole Caufield, who evades a lot of contact. Sean Farrell is really small, and he's doing what he's doing in the American Hockey League. And I think next fall will be a very interesting one for a guy like Sean Farrell to see if he can, get an NHL job in training camp. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, I think Phil Mesar has not done what he has needed to when he has been healthy to warrant being put in over a guy like, I'm trying to just, like, Brandon Davidson would be one of the guys that would be coming out, right? Brendan Gignac, except he's on like the second line. They're not taking those guys out because those guys are playing the way that Laval and by extension Montreal wants to play. They
Yeah.
play a heavy game. I just don't know that is Phil Mesar. So it'll be interesting to see how the Canadiens see him and what his training camp looks like next summer. Should he even get to that point? It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I feel like his place is on a lineup that's already big.
Yeah. Yeah. As a finishing touch, sort of, we can insulate this player with bigger bodies. I agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're, a big team and you want you want some skill added, that might be a route that you end up going. All right, let's move on to Brent in Mile End. Watching the 2025 playoffs and seeing the teams that are succeeding in the playoffs as opposed to the regular season, does it give you any ideas about where the Habs may need to improve? Are the Habs building towards playoff success? Does watching the success of Florida and Edmonton, and this is the part I want to focus on here, and the limitations of Winnipeg, Washington, and Toronto inform the rebuild in your minds? Do you take anything out of the losses that you've seen in the postseason so far, Laura?
Yes, absolutely. Again, this is not just to kick them while they're down, but if you are not the type of player who can mentally elevate your game in the playoffs, you are going to end up being labeled a choker forever. And Toronto has too many of those. I think the main lesson in Toronto is better cap management, 10 years ago or 7 years ago or whatever it is. That's the main lesson in Toronto. But I also think that your superstars have to be unstoppable. We talked about Nick Suzuki when he was, we knew he was injured, and we talked about it and we said he needed to be 100% for the playoffs, because if he could be 100%, then he would end up giving 900%, right? And that's Nick Suzuki, right? Like, that's not Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner. And so in my mind, that's the lesson from Toronto, right? The lesson from Winnipeg is you can't rely on just your goalie. The underlying numbers for Winnipeg were not good. I got extremely yelled at by Winnipeg fans by saying that one time on the podcast. Literally one
Why
time
are you
I
listening? Anyway,
it was either the preview or the post
gotcha,
game for
gotcha.
the Winnipeg game, for the last Winnipeg game. Anyways, but their underlying numbers are not promising. They're pedestrian. I'm not saying they're abjectly terrible, but they were just average. And you can't be an average team if you want to go far in the playoffs. So, and then Hellebuck obviously gets it's a Carey Price situation. They work him too hard, and then he can't maintain that momentum.
I would argue that Hellebuck has a lot of what those Toronto Maple Leafs have, in that it doesn't matter the big stage, he kind of just falls apart. Now, he did save it with a strong second round against Dallas. But if Winnipeg doesn't come back and win that game, the game in the first round against the Blues, we're talking about a guy who just, first of all, losing to Jordan Binnington again, which is really funny. But we're talking about a guy who every time he gets to this point, he falls apart. That's the same Toronto Maple Leafs. That, to me, there's two things that worry me. That, where your guys can't elevate. We've already seen a lot of the guys this year elevate when they needed to, which was really nice. The other is the one like the Washington loss in against Carolina, because I think Washington's a very good hockey team. I think they're well built. I think there's a lot of depth there. I like that team. But they ran into a team that stylistically just was able to pick them apart.
Yeah.
That you can't really control to a certain extent, and you need to be able to play against everybody, which is really hard to do. So,
Right.
That's what concerns me about, because sometimes you're a team like Washington where you run into a team like Carolina who just isn't a match for you. They might not have the same level of skill that you have, but up and down that lineup, everyone knows how Carolina Hurricanes play, right?
Yes.
We're going to shoot from everywhere. We're going to spend our entire time in the offensive zone, and you're not going to score a power play goal against us.
And we're
That's
not going to let you through. That's the thing. We're not going to let
Yeah.
you through. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So there's lots to pick apart from a lot of these teams that lost. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about the playoffs as they unfold. Edmonton's the one that's really tough to compare to because we don't have a McDavid and Draisaitl dynamic. So they're kind of, I just leave them where they are.
Well, I think there is a lesson though. You can't just be top heavy because that's also a lesson about Toronto, right?
Yeah.
There's also a lesson about some Washington teams of the past. Not this year. What I think will be really interesting, not with Edmonton, but with just to go back to Washington real quick, is to see how they evolve next playoffs. Assuming they make it, how do they evolve their game? Because Spencer Carberry is fairly new. He's very, very lauded tactician, right? Somebody that is probably going to win the Jack Adams this year, but also just a guy who's just smart. He's simply smart, and he's another guy that Toronto let walk away. But just essentially the lesson from Toronto is don't. That's the lesson from Toronto. But back to Edmonton, right? I think that the lesson there was again, like Toronto, they were too top heavy. They relied too much on that. And when it came time to say, okay, we got to work on our defense, we got to get better goaltending, it was too late.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out for them this year. Dallas is a really strong match for them. They beat Dallas last year en route to the Cup final. Dallas came back big in game 1. We'll see how they fare in the next game. But yeah, I completely agree. I think you need to have depth throughout your lineup. It's the only way you're going to win, which is why teams like Florida win and they continue to be in these spots because they can carry that, that depth throughout the playoffs.
They're relentless. It's honestly
it sucks. It's a good team to hate though, right? I think the league needs heels.
Yes.
Yeah, we need villains. They're perfect villains.
And sometimes the villains win. It's fun.
Yeah. Anyway, let's leave the playoffs there. We have to hit our trivia, and then we're headed into the weekend. Let's do yesterday's trivia question. We were talking about Laurent Dauphin, who scored for Laval. And Laval, as you're listening to this, game 4 is tonight. So make sure you're ready to go. In Laurent Dauphin's draft-eligible season of 2012-13, he recorded 57 points in 62 games, good for 4th on Chicoutimi. Which former Montreal Canadien led Chicoutimi in scoring that season? Laura, you have the answer, don't you?
It is one Charles Hudon.
Yes, a guy I refer to as Chud, because my buddy Zach always used to call him Chud. So that's Chud. The answer was answered correctly by Super Rain, Basic Bruce, and JFZZZ92. I don't know how I'm supposed to say that, so I spelled it out. Congrats on knowing who Charles Hudon is. But let's do today's question. It's called Caufield based. This year, the Canadiens had 2 players with double-digit power play goals. When was the last time the Habs had 2 players with double-digit power play goals in one season, and who were they? So the last time the Canadiens had 2 players who scored double-digit power play goals in a season was a year. Name the year and give me the players who did it. If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below. While you're there, go ahead and type in contest entry to be entered to win those 2 signed photos, one of Josh Anderson and one of Arbor Xhekaj. Thanks so much for listening. That's going to do it for us today on Locked On Canadiens. Make sure you check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV on your free Fire TV channels app. Click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section, and you can watch all of our episodes there as well. We are Locked On Canadiens everywhere on socials, Bluesky, Instagram, TikTok, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Send us mailbag questions, pictures of your dog, something nice. We really enjoy getting mail from you guys. It brightens our day. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back on Monday.